She said she shouldn't have been a wife or a mother. Her 14-year-old son, a boy who hadn't been truly comfortable around her in years, didn't flinch when he heard it. Instead, he told his father he wanted to stay with him, full-time, no negotiations, no courtroom necessary. 6 months earlier, this man had posted one question on Reddit asking if he'd gone too far with a single honest sentence. The truth was, he hadn't gone nearly far enough. This is the story of a father who held his family together single-handedly, while the woman who should have been his partner quietly chose her career over the people who needed her most. She cried about missing memories. He told her the truth. And when all was said and done, karma didn't arrive loudly. It arrived in the quiet voice of a boy choosing his father. Let me take you back to where this all began. He was 39 years old and by most accounts had built something good. A stay-at-home father by both choice and circumstance, he had stepped away from his career years earlier when he and his wife decided that was what was best for their family. Their son arrived, the years unfolded, and what was supposed to be temporary had quietly become permanent. The original agreement was clear. He'd return to work when their son started kindergarten. But when kindergarten arrived, his wife was pushing hard for promotion. Just a little longer, she said. Stay home a little longer. He agreed because he loved being a dad genuinely, completely. He was the one who learned every name on the soccer roster, who made breakfast before school, who knew which aisle had the right cereal. He believed they were building something together, a partnership, a life that was shared even if the roles were different. He was about to discover just how long he had been building it alone. When the promotion came through, things didn't improve, they got worse. Her hours increased. The windows for family time shrank. He kept telling himself it was temporary, that success had its seasons, that balance would come, so he adapted. He built the family calendar around her schedule, notifying her days in advance about soccer games, road trips, back-to-school runs, every possible chance to be there. For a while, she said yes. She committed. Then the morning of the event would come, or the night before, and a message would arrive. Too tired, too busy, can't make it. He quietly stopped telling their son when mom had promised to come. That was an act of mercy. Because watching a child's face collapse when a parent doesn't show up is a wound that doesn't heal clean, and he refused to let his boy absorb that more than once. He took the disappointment himself, every time. A distance was forming between his wife and their son, slow, quiet, and permanent. A soccer game here, an amusement park road trip there. Birthday parties, school events, the small rituals that weave a childhood out of ordinary days. He went to all of them. Sometimes alone, sometimes with a close friend, sometimes standing next to parents who had come to know him well over the years, the dad who always showed up. Through all of it, the question he dreaded most wasn't from his wife. It was from his son. Is mom coming? He learned to answer carefully. She said she'd try, and when she didn't show, she got too tired from work, buddy. But here's what you need to understand. His son was 14 years old. Smart enough to do the math. Old enough to recognize the pattern. Young enough that it still hurt every single time. At some point, the boy simply stopped asking, not in a dramatic way, just in the quiet, resigned way that children do when hope has drained out so slowly that neither of them could name the exact moment it left. He stopped bringing it up to his wife. What was the point? He had run the same conversation enough times that it had worn grooves into the floor. Every version ended the same. She was tired, she was busy, work was demanding, maybe next time. He tried building outings around her calendar. He tried flexibility, spontaneity, framing it as a small thing, framing it as an urgent thing, making her see it through their son's eyes. Nothing moved. So he made a quiet decision. Their son's life was going to keep happening, with or without her. He would fill every gap she left. He would be the parent who was there. And somewhere along the way, without anyone announcing it, their son stopped going to his mother when he needed something. He went to his dad, or to his dad's best friend. That is how far it had gone. A boy's own mother had become less present, less known, less dependable than his father's closest friend. And still, no one said it out loud. Then came the purple hair. His son, 14, at exactly the age where small acts of self-expression feel enormous, wanted to dye his hair. So his dad called a friend who actually knew what he was doing, and they made a day of it. Music playing, laughing at the sharp smell of the dye, his son sitting in a chair with tin foil sections in his hair, grinning like it was the greatest afternoon of his life. And honestly, it kind of was. The kind of day you cannot plan, it just happens when the right people are in the right room and nobody needs anything to be more than it is. He didn't tell his wife beforehand. It didn't occur to him. She had opted out of these moments so consistently that her presence had simply stopped registering as a factor. That night, she came home. She saw the purple hair. And instead of laughing, instead of leaning in and asking about it, instead of sharing in her teenage son's obvious delight, she started to cry. She said they were making memories without her. Something in him, some last thread of patience he had been holding onto out of sheer loyalty and exhaustion, finally let go. He looked at his wife and said what he had been thinking for years. He said, "If we waited for you to make memories with our son, we wouldn't have any." Just like that, not shouted, not cruel. Just honest, finally, in its uncut form. And because honesty has a way of not stopping once it starts, he kept going. He told her what they both already knew: their son was not comfortable around her anymore. There was no "go ask your mom." There was only "let me see if my friend is free." She had made herself a guest in her own child's life through 1,000 quiet choices, and now she was standing in the kitchen crying about the consequences of those choices. She went silent after that, stopped speaking to him. He found himself on Reddit, typing the whole story out, genuinely asking strangers if he had gone too far. He already knew the answer. He gave her every chance to change course. He asked her to attend marriage counseling. Not once, multiple times, across multiple weeks with genuine intent. She refused, every single time. No counteroffer, no explanation, just a closed door. And the more he sat with that refusal, the more clearly he saw what he had spent years talking himself out of. She wasn't absent because work was overwhelming. She wasn't distant because she was depleted. She had declared her priorities through action, again and again, and the only thing standing between him and that reality was his own refusal to stop believing she might still change. He had given up his career twice to keep the household running. He had protected his son from disappointment by absorbing it himself. He had called years of cancellations and silence patience. But patience has an end. And somewhere between the crying in the kitchen and the closed doors of a therapist's office she refused to enter, he reached his. At some point, a man stops filing appeals and starts accepting the verdict. Then she said it, out loud in plain language without room for interpretation. She cared more about her career than being a wife or a mother. Not communicated through years of absence, though she had been saying it that way for a long time, but spoken, directly. Finally, there is something uniquely devastating about a confession like that, not because it surprises you, but because it removes the very last defense you had, the one where you still told yourself it wasn't really true, it couldn't really be this simple, you must be misreading it. It was this simple. He filed for divorce. Custody discussions began. The initial agreement would give him primary custody and her every other weekend. And then their son, 14, clear-eyed, already fully aware of who had actually shown up, said he wanted to speak to the judge himself. He wanted full time with his dad. She heard that, and she did not fight it. She simply agreed. In that one quiet agreement was every answer this story ever needed. The divorce will be finalized within 2 months of his update. He's in therapy now, not because he broke, but because he's smart enough to know that untangling years of slow erosion takes outside help. He's back in the workforce and something unexpected happened. He feels more confident. Not because staying home was wrong, he was good at it and he loved it, but because the world is reminding him that he is capable, that the years of sacrifice were a choice, not a sentence imposed on him. His son is with him, full time. His ex has visited once since the custody agreement was reached, called a handful of times. The boy who spent years waiting for his mother to show up at soccer games has stopped waiting. Not in bitterness, in the settled, forward-facing way of someone who has accepted what is real and decided to build from there. Some losses only look like tragedy. Sometimes the truth arriving, finally, in its honest form, is the only kind of relief that actually lasts. Here's what I keep coming back to with this story. This wasn't a monster. It wasn't a villain twirling a mustache. It was someone who simply never wanted what she had agreed to build and was either unable or unwilling to say so until everything had already been lost. The tragedy isn't the divorce. The divorce was the mercy. The real tragedy is the years their son spent watching his mother choose not to be there, 1,000 small disappearances that a child carries quietly long after the adults have moved on. But cold karma does not always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it doesn't look like a public collapse or a dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it looks like a 14-year-old boy, purple hair and all, looking his father in the eye and saying, "I want to stay with you." Sometimes justice is that exact, that quiet, that complete. If this story landed with you, hit like, subscribe. We post stories of people who held on, told the truth, and let karma do the rest.